Hi, everybody. I am so thrilled to be here. My name is Kent C. Dodds, and normally at this point, I would invite you all to stand up, but we don't have time for that. So just like move around a little bit, get some blood flowing. We're going to go straight to the demo. So this is, oh, I got an update. You got to be joking. Well, just ignore that. So this is a very simple React Router app. You got your movie collection here. Thanks, Chance, for helping me figure out this animation. You can watch the movie trailer. You can mark it as favorite. Of course, I'm going to mark Lord of the Rings as a favorite. That's it. That's the entire React Router app. Woohoo! Yeah, no way! Yeah. But what's cool about this is that it's a React Router app like so many of you have. And it's using all of the features that I need to show you how you can incrementally adopt React Server components. So let's start in our Vite config. I'm using React Router with framework mode, but if you're using React Router in data mode, you also will be able to use React Server components, which I think is pretty awesome. So a lot of you who are living out there in the real world, you've got your own complicated build pipelines and stuff. If you can get that working with server components, then React Router can enable all of these things for you as well, which I think is pretty rad. So we're going to start by switching our React Router plugin, and we're also going to bring in a plugin from Vite for RSC. And with that, our app is now running with React Server components. Yay! Yeah. So we're not actually using RSCs, but we have the ability. But here's the cool thing is that you can commit this and you can deploy this to production, and then later you can come in and start adding more stuff. So you don't have to change any of your source code. Except for one thing. If I looked at the root, here we go. If I looked at the warnings in the console, I would see that we actually no longer need the scripts element rendered here anymore because that's included as part of the RSC payload. So we can get rid of that. Warning's gone. Now you can ship and deploy this. Okay, so now that we've got that, I want to start using RSC, right? But let's imagine that this is a really big app and you can't just start putting everything into React Server component because now you have to start adding use client everywhere, or it's just can be really complicated. So let's say that there was just this one piece right here that is really heavy. Maybe that movie card is comprised of potentially tens of thousands of combinations of components, and we don't know which component to use until we get the data, whatever, and we want to move this over to the server. So in React Router, you have this loader export that runs on the server. You have your default export, that is your component that renders both on the server and on the client. So if we wanted to move this to the server, we just move this to the server. And I stole that one from Brian Florence last year. But boom. Now that is a React Server component still working exactly the same, except whatever is inside of movie card, all of the components that are used there stay on the server. And I think that's pretty cool because it allows us to incrementally adopt React Server components rather than just changing our whole app to use a React Server component. You can just go anywhere you want in the React tree and say, oh, this spot right here, that really needs to be a server component. Move it to the loader, and it's a server component. So that's neat. But you know what? This route actually is just, there's nothing really all that interesting about this route as far as state is concerned. I could actually make this whole thing a server component without trouble. So how do we do that? Well, first, we're going to, instead of making this be a default export, we're going to make it a named export, and we'll call it server component. And then I can actually, now that this is a server component, I can make this async. And we can move this back in. We can get rid of the loader entirely, and in fact, we can even get rid of that import. We can get rid of the props. Now, it's still server component. The whole thing, the entire route is a server component. That was easy, right? It's not all that impressive when you look at it, but if you think about how complicated it can be to make all of this work, I think that it's pretty awesome. It's fascinating how well the Vite and the React Router team made this so that you could incrementally adopt this. And what's really cool about this is if I had a child route, I don't have to worry about that, making that child route a server component. It will remain a client component until I do the same thing here. And you can nest those as far as you want. You've got a server component route, and then it has a child that's a client component, and then you have a child that's a server, and it just goes all the way down. So if you're on the team that's in charge of the shell, you can be like, all right, we've got our stuff together. We can make this part a server component. We don't have to talk to the teams who are on these different pages. Or in the inverse, you're like just in charge of this part of the app. You can make your part of the app a server component. I think that is pretty awesome. And you get all the benefits of server components. I forgot to mention, I'm not here to convince you that RSCs are awesome. I'm just here to show you how to use them in React Router. So I'm assuming you already believe that RSCs are fabulous. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. All right, so let's go over to the movie details. I'm going to go to K-pop Demon Hunters. Any fans, K-pop Demon Hunters fans? No! Oh, I made a bug. I changed this like last minute, just back there. This is supposed to be a Rickroll. I Rickrolled myself! No, I was supposed to, like, after I fixed this, make that happen. That is so sad. Okay. Yeah, K-pop Demon Hunters, how many of you are There are not enough K-pop Demon Hunters fans in here. Okay. So here we've got a couple of things in this route that I want to adjust. First of all, we've got this action. You know what we have in React is server functions, and we don't really need this action anymore. So all this action does is it grabs the form data and passes it over to set as favorite. What if instead we don't have the action at all? We come down here, and instead of a React Router form, we just make it a regular form, and we say our action is set as favorite. Okay, cool. Let's click that, and it's not going to work. And the reason it's not going to work is because I need to update this module to say it is accessible by the client. So it's use server. And so now that server or that reference will be sent to the client, and it can indeed call. And we can unmark and mark as favorite. I'm going to leave it as a favorite. So that's pretty neat. Now we have we can get rid of our actions. And the cool thing about that, too, is now I can take this form, and I can make it a component, and I can use it anywhere I want to, and I don't have to worry about finding the closest route to wire up the action, or use some sort of full-stack component pattern thing to wire that up. So that's neat. Yeah, there we go. Woohoo! Yeah, I am happy to see that full-stack component pattern go. All right, so let's continue. I want to make this a server component as well, so I can do all of the same stuff, get rid of this loader, right? So let's go server component, export async. Let's get rid of our loader data. We'll swap that out for our params. Save that. Oh, uh-oh. Just kidding. No, I'm acting. I was expecting that. This is use state is not a function. Who knows what that is all about? Anybody? Anybody? Yeah, I heard a whistle. I'm going to assume that means, yes, I know. So it's because we forgot use client. And so that's it. Turn it into a server component, and then take the things that are using like client-only stuff with use client. And now we can watch the trailer, and I can Rickroll you. There you go. Yeah, wait. That's it. That is how you incrementally migrate your way to React server components with React Router. And I still have about a minute and a half left, which I think is actually pretty cool. It's pretty telling of the simplicity of React server components with React Router, that I can show you everything that you need to know about that in just 9 minutes. Yeah, woohoo, thank you. No way. So, because I have a minute and 18 seconds left, I have one more thing that I want to share with you, and that is this. why did I show you a promo from ChatGPT? It's because this is the new way that users are going to be interacting with our apps very soon. Whether you're writing React or anything else, our users want to use ChatGPT or an app like it to work with your application. This is built on top of a standard protocol called MCP, and back in March, I decided MCP was the future for all of us. And so I made a major pivot. So some of you might know me from epicreact.dev or epicweb.dev. I pivoted back in March to epicai.pro, and all of these things are still very relevant in this future user interaction model. So if you want to follow me over there on Epic AI Pro, I'm going to help you with this next iteration of how users interact with our software. And a super exciting announcement just an hour ago. If you want to get into React Router, Alam Tuzlek just launched a new workshop on epicweb.dev where he's going to teach you all about React Router. Super stoked about that. I have one more thing that I want to share with you. You're splendid. Thank you very much.